Hello, everybody, and welcome to Taking Control, the ADHD podcast on True Story FM. I'm Pete Wright, and oh, look, it's Nikki Kinzer.
Oh, look. Hello, everyone. Hello, Pete Wright.
Hi, Nikki. Hi. I'm excited to be podcasting with you again. This second episode of season 29.
If you don't want to, you can change your mind. It's okay.
And I can feel good about it. I
Yes.
don't have to be filled with self-loathing and self-judgment and,
That's right.
And just rage like I'm accustomed to.
We can do it on a different day. It's fine.
Which is exactly what we're talking about today. We are talking about, you were inspired. You were inspired.
I was inspired.
To change your mind. And we changed our mind on this episode. And we're doing this right now today.
That's right.
Which is going to be really, really great. And so before you do that, head over to the website, takecontroladhd.com. Get to know us a little bit better. You know the whole drill. Pinterest, Facebook, Instagram. It's all Take Control ADHD. We're going to be talking a lot on those platforms. We'll be talking on personal platforms too. I'll go ahead and shout it out. I started my Instagram account again, _Pete Wright, and I'm going to be talking about stuff. You know how I know? Because I've been assigned to do so. And so get ready for more of that. If you want to jump into our Discord community, visit takecontroladhd.com/Discord, and you will you'll be able to log in there. A lot of the channels are free, but if you really want to help us out, and if you're a longtime listener of the show and have just been considering what you might do to support Nikki and Pete and the ADHD podcast team, head over to Patreon, patreon.com/the ADHD podcast. Listener-supported podcasting, that's what that is. For a few bucks a month, you support the show for sure. You help us put shoes on our feet and food on our tables. And you also get access to other stuff, like all the secret channels at the different tier levels in Discord. And there's a lot going on in there, which is really, really fun. You also get access to the live stream. You join us for the member-only segments before and after every podcast in the live stream. You get access to all the goofiness. You know, we talked about cars before the show started today. You missed out on that if you didn't hear it.
And you also missed out on the fact that Pete has red pants.
Sassy pants. Yeah.
Or will have.
I will.
He will have some red sassy pants very soon for Deadpool.
I aspire to red pants. And so there's just a lot going on in the member community. And we are super grateful for everybody who supports the show and continue to help us grow. So if you haven't thought about it, now's a great time. Patreon.com/the ADHD podcast to learn more. All right, Nikki, here we are.
This
is it. It's the mind-changing thing.
It's okay to change your mind.
Let's talk about where this came from. It was inspired by something that happened in the declutter challenge, right?
Yes. So it just recently happened. So the declutter challenge that we have 4 Saturdays that we work together, right? Doing the body doubling and doing the decluttering. And last Saturday, I was in my attic area. Yes, the attic that I fell through one time.
That is a dangerous
It is
labor.
a very dangerous place. And Melissa told me to make sure I had my hard hat on. I didn't have my hard hat on. And my camera.
We definitely want to see if anything new happens.
Right. But I was very, very careful when I was in this attic space. But this is what I found. So my husband's a photographer and we have tons of photo frames, and we have all of these photos that we've taken over the years. And I was looking at some of them and I'm thinking, gosh, this is such a great photo. Why do we not have this on the wall? Right. And then we have all of these great frames. It's like, why are these not on the wall? Well, we painted our house or inside of our house. I would probably say about 2 years ago, maybe 2.5 years ago. And we never put the pictures back. And we never put the pictures back. So we look like we just moved into our home when we've actually been here since 2007. So I pulled all of the picture frames, and I mean, there's a lot of them, like at least 50, if not more. I pulled all of the frames out into our guest room, and now they're there. And I'm thinking, and I was talking to our GPS members, because there's some members from GPS that are in the declutter challenge. So we were on our Monday meeting, and it was during Q&A, and I was like, I kind of think I want to change my focus from the decluttering to actually focusing on these frames, because I would really like to know which ones are broken, which ones I want to put up, and then start putting them up in my house. And it's interesting because I'm changing my whole focus for the last session. So in the last session this Saturday, I'm going to be working on the photo stuff and not decluttering. And some people might think that that's wrong because I'm veering away from the original intention.
Well, I think it's really important to address why it is like we're met with such such a strong emotional reaction to that. If we're
Right.
met with a strong reaction to that, because I get it, like I really get it. And I would say with ADHD, at its very root for me is I have been told all along that ADHD is what is preventing me from getting something done. Therefore, if I choose to change my mind and try to be open to that, the immediate response is, oh no, that's ADHD talking. It's not real. It's not a real intention. I shouldn't honor that because that's just my brain getting in the way of me doing something I don't want to do.
And that's where I think you have to be really honest with yourself. And this is why we're talking about this, because as we're going to explain this, with ADHD, there comes this challenge of black and white thinking. It can be black and white thinking, all or nothing, absolute thinking. They all mean the same thing, right? So where the issue is with this is that what do I want to say? I committed to a challenge and now I'm changing my mind. And what you're saying is, well, ADHD is telling me that I'm changing my mind to avoid the declutter challenge. But I know that that's not true. And so I think you have to be, you know how we were talking about, are we lying to ourselves? Are we being true to ourselves? And so I think that this is where the conversation, and this is why I inspired this show, is because when we were talking about this with the other declutter member, is she said, well, it makes sense because the impact for you on these frames is higher right now to get this done, because you're going to enjoy them. You're going to be getting them back, and I'm using 3M strips to get them on the wall, And so as I was talking to her about it, I'm like, I feel better about this because I'm not breaking the rules, right? And I'm not leaving something because I don't want to do it. I'm just switching gears because right now this feels more important. It is more important. It doesn't just feel it. It is it to me. I would rather spend the time doing this. And I'll go back to the decluttering. And so I think that there's a conversation because, my first reaction to all of this too is like, well, I failed. I'm not doing the challenge. I'm giving up. I'm quitting. But that's not true. I'm not giving up. I'm not quitting. I'm switching gears. I'll go back to it. I'll continue to do this. But right now I found something that I wasn't expecting that is really important to me to take care of. And this is the opportunity to do it.
And I think that's the important distinction. But I also think that is what is so hard about ADHD, because intermittent reinforcement of those signals means that I can feel like this other thing is more important. I can know in my heart of hearts that it's more important, and that can still be a fake signal, right? So I have learned not to trust those signals because of my ADHD. I've learned not to trust them. So any change in gears ends up being an opportunity for me to revisit the feelings of failure. Right?
Well,
even if it's true.
Right. And I think that that's why this conversation is so important.
Yes.
Because that is the black and white thinking. Because you're saying, if I don't do this, I failed. If I don't do this, ADHD came. If I change my mind, I'm doing something wrong. But it is okay to change your mind. And it's okay to have a bunch of projects that aren't finished. We have to be okay with that. Because that is the reality of ADHD. There are going to be some things that aren't finished. But but the other thing I want to say here is, don't discount. I did 3 weeks of decluttering.
your brain's going to throw that right away, right?
Oh
You
my
change your
gosh,
mind.
yeah.
Clearly, it's not worth it. And this is why, we'll get to it, but we should get to it because this is the thing that I think is probably biggest for me in this entire discussion. It all leads to sunk cost fallacy for me, right? It all leads to that. And I don't remember if we talked about it in our mental models series, but we need to get to it because all of the things leading up to it are all manifestation of cognitive distortions, binary thinking we've talked about before.
Yes.
And the biggest one for me is exactly what you just said. So let's talk about some of how black and white thinking can emerge.
Well, I'm going to give you real examples of things that I've heard recently.
Yeah.
Okay. So time blocking doesn't work for me because I don't do what I say I'm going to do.
Right.
I didn't do everything on my task list today. I should have been more productive.
Huge.
The morning didn't go as planned. The rest of the day is ruined. And this is a big one. A task took longer than I expected. I'm not being productive enough.
Yeah.
And this one is huge. I think that this is a really important one because tasks typically take longer than what we expect. We put way too much on our task list to do for the day. And then when we don't get everything done, we feel like we've done something wrong. We've failed. We weren't productive enough. We should have done something different. I spent too much time doing this. But the reality is, it took you the time that it took you to do this. That's not being not productive. You were productive in that moment. It just took longer than what you expected. Nothing's wrong. You didn't do anything wrong. And so it's such a mindset. And or also again discounting what it is that you're doing.
Right. Which is I mean that's really important. I went back and I looked up some of our mental model stuff, and so let me just review a couple of the cognitive distortions because you just said another one there that we've run through over the years. All or nothing thinking, got it. Seeing things in black and white categories. Overgeneralization, right? Drawing broad conclusions from a single event, huge. Mental filters, focusing solely on negative aspects while ignoring the positives. That's, you're
focusing on everything that you didn't do, but not on what you did do.
Right. And we do this all the
time.
All the time. Discounting the positive, rejecting positive experiences as unimportant, right?
Or once in a lifetime, like this is just a fluky thing. Yeah.
Right. Jumping to conclusions, making negative interpretations without supporting facts. Got it, all the time. Magnification or minimization, exaggerating negatives or downplaying positives. So you're essentially letting the peaks and valleys rule. Emotional reasoning, assuming that feelings reflect your reality. That's
the
very
emotional toll, right?
Totally defines what we're talking about here. How bad we feel when we change directions and change our mind.
Yes.
Should statements, using words like should, might, or ought to define how you feel about doing a thing. Labeling, attaching global negative traits to oneself or others. And personalization, assuming responsibility for events outside of one's control.
Absolutely.
All the time. And this leads back to, my mantra for a lot of years. Their stress is not my stress.
Right. Their emergency is not my emergency.
Exactly. Yeah. And so those are kind of the mental models, the cognitive distortion mental models that we've talked about, and I think they really reflect on why we get stuck in this place, this emotional reality of self-judgment, self-loathing, whatever your norm is when you are faced with an opportunity to change your mind.
I want to talk about the sunk cost fallacy again.
You got it.
Because I have a really good example.
Well, okay. So what is it first? It's the sunk cost fallacy.
Let's do the definition.
So the tendency to continue doing a thing because you've already started doing a thing, even if that thing is no longer beneficial, right? So you said it, taking on the declutter challenge for 3 weeks and changing your mind. Well, you couldn't do that because I've already spent these 3 weeks. I didn't finish. So I have to spend the rest of the week because I'm telling myself that those 3 weeks no longer matter if I don't do the fourth week.
That's exactly right.
That's the fallacy.
That's it. Yes. And I have this weird little example that's going on right now in my life. So I decided about 2 weeks ago that I was going to do a 2,000 piece puzzle, which is huge, right?
Yeah.
Usually I do a 1,000 piece. And it's so big that it doesn't fit on my puzzle board. It fits on my table. And so I had to take everything off of the table and I have to put a blanket over it and I have to put all this stuff on it so that the cats don't get into it and everything, right? Well, it's taken me a long time to work on this and it's not finished yet. Well, this is the issue. On Friday, we are getting a new table and chairs.
I could not imagine. I looked at the notes and I could not imagine where this was going to go. You have to get rid of this. Oh my God.
Because I can't move it to the other table we have because it's a puzzle and it's 2,000 pieces. So unless I finish this puzzle by Friday, which is not going to happen because I'm working.
Yeah.
And it's just not going to happen. There's still probably at least half that still needs to be done. I'm going to have to put this puzzle away unfinished.
That is heartbreaking.
So
I just as an aside, let me tell you as a parenthetical, this is a sidebar. We're doing a sidebar.
Yeah. Sidebar.
We had puzzle emergencies too. Puzzles were too big, and so we went to a custom acrylic place, and you can take measurements of your table and have them cut giant sheets of plexiglass and keep it in the corner. But when you do your puzzle, you can then take the plexiglass and put it on top of the table, and then you can use the table again and just know that your puzzle is completely protected. That will not help you here.
No, but happy birthday to me. Yeah. That is going to be my birthday present this year.
Absolutely.
Brilliant idea. Because then I could have just moved it into my bedroom and put it on top of the bed until we get the new table and chairs. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good. All right. Well, it is. I mean, but going back to this whole idea, this is this is not a life-shattering thing, right? I mean, it's going to be okay. It sucks because I have put a lot of time into what I've already put into it. But it is what it is. It's not gonna hurt me or hurt anyone else.
But listen to how you're talking about it. Like, that is so healthy the way you're talking about it. And the problem with sunk cost fallacy is we don't normally use that kind of language with ourselves, right? We get stuck in it.
Yeah.
And it becomes a thing that it's impossible. There is a room in this potential future where you would be a person to say, I'm not giving up this table. You'll have to make room for 2 tables.
2 tables until I get,
until you
or
finish,
I'm going to stay up all night until this thing is done.
Right.
And it is going to be this like huge priority. Right.
Which is not healthy behavior. You're not being paid to do a puzzle. You're not doing some sort of a contest.
Yeah.
It's not a race. You're okay. And that's the healthy language of it, right?
Well, and that's where, I want, this is so prevalent for so many people is, again, this conversation is so important because it brings that awareness that, what are we telling ourselves? What is the story that we're telling ourselves about the situation? Whatever it is, whether it's a puzzle or switching focuses on a challenge. How are we speaking to ourselves? Because I think that's the biggest component is that self-compassion. Are you speaking to yourself about the situation the same way that you would speak to someone that you love? And it was interesting because when that comment came to me around, well, it took me longer to do this, but so I should have done something different. I should have been more productive. And I asked that person, so would you have said that to your child? Would you have told them that the way that they, because they took too long, they weren't productive enough? And, the client kind of stepped back and like, no, I would never say that So then why is it okay to say it to you?
Yeah, of course. Of course.
And so it really is going back to how you're speaking to yourself as well.
So I've been making some notes. I've got questions. Can I ask you some questions,
Sure.
Coach? I've got
Yeah,
questions.
go right ahead.
One, some of this feels like it's anchored in how we evaluate what it means to finish a thing. And I wonder if there isn't a sub conversation here around how do we reframe the concept of finishing that is more ADHD friendly or more of this sort of change your mind friendly, more adaptable. Have you ever approached that? Like redefining what finishing
No,
means in planning and goal setting?
Yeah, I think that that's actually a really important point because how we define things make a difference. And so it would be a question that I would say back to you is what does finish mean? What does finish mean to you? What does good enough mean to you? How does it feel to be at a place where good enough is? Because good enough sometimes feels like, well, I didn't do enough, right? Or I should have done more. And so it's peeling back the limiting beliefs and the shoulds, where are the shoulds in here? And with this decluttering game, I've had more questions this time around the game itself, because at the end of the month, we're supposed to have 496 items, right? Because we're playing the game that you told us about a long time ago.
Years and years ago.
Ago. And a lot of people are very hung up on if they don't do the 496 items, they failed. And I have to keep reminding them that there's no failure here. That if you do 100 items, that's great. You just let go of 100 items. And so the game was to gamify it. It was to make it fun, but it's not to make it as a, again, something you failed at the end if you didn't do. So I think it's getting that flexibility muscle. Like
that's it. It's really only failure if you didn't have fun, right? If it became
it's
painful,
supposed to be fun.
That's a failure of the game, not of you. Like that's not for you.
Right. And maybe 496 items isn't your goal. Just because I have it as a game doesn't mean that has to be your goal. And so also, like, we had members that were saying, well, I'm not really going to focus on the numbers. I'm just going to focus on what I'm doing. And I'm like, that's it. That's what you're doing. That's what we're doing. So I think it's just that flexibility that even though this is laid out a certain way, doesn't mean that you can't adjust it or you can't tweak it for yourself, or that you, you're not doing good because it's not finished. I don't know. I mean, I guess going back to your point is, we need to know a better definition of what that means. And maybe nothing is finished. That's the thing too, is maybe there isn't a finish line. When we talk about goals, right? We don't like that word because it feels like it has to have a start and a finish. But when you talk about focus, that feels so much nicer because the focus is something that can be ongoing. It's not something that you have to finish. And so, I think. But
this is why it comes back to how we define what finished means on a project that we take on. Like the finish is loaded, right?
Oh, it so much is.
But maybe the end of the declutter challenge is I'm going to have fun for a month and I'm going to declutter some stuff in my house with some friends.
Yeah, right.
Right? Maybe that's the goal. The goal is have fun for a month decluttering. The goal is not a certain number of things. And because as soon as we do that, as soon as we look critically at every project individually about what finished looks like, I think we're going to be able to build a more flexible approach to setting endpoints that allow for changes in direction, right? That allow us to be opportunistic about the things in our lives. I just want to make sure we balance that with, let's say I go to work every day and there are deadlines. And sometimes I have to do those deadlines. It's very different when we're talking about not finishing a puzzle or not finishing the declutter challenge than it is when people are breathing down my neck and I have just decided, you know what, I'm changing my mind. I need to do something else.
Yeah.
When is it okay to not be okay with yourself versus to be okay with it and push through? Do you see what I'm saying? Like,
no, I do.
That feels like an important difference.
Your point is very valid. And I want to share with you, there was a conversation I had with a GPS member, and we were talking about distractions is where it started. And her question was, I'll have something time blocked and I need to do this task, but I will get distracted by something else, like doing the dishes or doing something that I see that needs to get done. And what was interesting is the conversation as it played out wasn't so much about the distraction. It was because she was purposely avoiding something. And so then the conversation switched from how to deal with distractions to how do you deal with an avoided task? So we have to be really true to ourselves and really not accept things at face value. And if something is being avoided, then that is a different situation, especially when there's high impact involved. It's work related, it's financially related, or financial, consequences. So things
or
like
team
that.
related
So,
when someone's waiting on you.
Yeah. So I think what you're saying is it's very true. We have to just be aware that this is where our thinking goes. And then in each situation, because we talk very broadly, right? We need to really look at the situation and say, okay, what is really going on here? And what do I need to do next? And that will either say, it's okay for me to let this go and know that I didn't fail, or nope, there's a pretty high impact here. If I don't follow through with this, I might get fired.
Well, you know what's funny is it seems like what we're talking about here, if you boil it down, and we talk a lot about when you're building out your projects, when you have tasks in front of you and you just don't know how to take a bite out of them, to break them down into their smallest atomic component. That's what you do. What is the smallest thing you can do? Going back to Kurosh Dini, who just says, just visit the thing, right?
Yes.
Just visit it. Just move it forward by thinking about it kind of hard today. You don't even have to do anything, just visit it. Breaking things down to the smallest atomic components is really important. The same thing, I think, goes toward defining what endpoints look like. And I think too easily we throw the word finished at it like we know what that is, without breaking down what it feels like to actually do the thing, to actually have an accomplishment. Because sometimes you get to the end and you feel accomplished for something that is different than the thing you started out to do.
Sure.
Right? And that's okay. And I think that's really important, to look at the word finished at the atomic level too. What are the things that you will have done? Because that might change the way you do things. It might change the way you celebrate the work that you do. It might change the way you communicate with the people who you are accountable, to whom you are accountable. All of those things rely on you being super cognizant about the smallest, like, atomic deliverables of the end. And that, I think, going through this conversation, that helps me, right? Applying a prioritization strategy to defining what end is allows me, I think, to be more opportunistic when it comes time to change my mind, because I'll know what pieces need to move around more fluidly. Does that make sense? Am I just barking?
No, it does. And I think, just again, to clarify that each situation is going to have a different definition, because if you're painting your bathroom, there's a pretty clear, I'm starting to paint my bathroom and the bathroom is ended. If you go halfway and you haven't finished the project, it's probably, maybe it's good enough if you're okay with having, two different colors, but you may want to continue focusing on getting that finished. But decluttering and organizing a home is not as clear. It is not as, this is now finished. And this is where it gets tricky too, when you're writing something or you're writing an email to someone. How do I know when it's finished? How do I know that I can send it? And so really you really have to look at what you're looking at and make that decision and go through that question process to figure out what you're comfortable with.
Right.
Yeah.
That's good. That we finished, right? Did we finish? I don't know that I knew
like
what finished would look like. I feel good about this.
This is going to come up again.
Well, this was great. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out and listening to this, and hopefully getting some thoughts out of it for the way you handle your own projects and your own feelings about changing your mind. We are going to hang up the main show now because we've got to jump into the member-only chat. And there are people who are chatting right along with the live stream in Discord. And so we're going to go in there and take questions. And that is a benefit that you get when you become a supporting Discord member at the deluxe level or better. We hope that you consider joining so you can be a part of these kinds of great conversations. Thank you so much for your time and attention. We'll see you over in the Show Talk channel in Discord. And on behalf of Nikki Kinzer, I'm Pete Wright. We'll see you next week right here on Taking Control, the ADHD Podcast.